Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of Paradigm Shift in Educational Comedy. I know it's been a while since we've done a full-blown hangout with me, Dave Kelso, and we have Richard Hamilton, and we have Katerina Roy, or Katerina Edwards Roy, whatever you want to call her. And we're gonna start with some world events. We're gonna start with an on-screen reading of a post I made, then an on-screen reading and showing of a post Katerina sent to me. Then we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to move into all sorts of updates about all sorts of crazy shit that's been happening with all three of us, including the Katerina Roy swimsuit edition footage. But, you know, we'll get to that. That's a little bit of a surprise for later. Oh, surprise revealed. Anyway, okay. Yeah, she laughed. The screen went. It's like, yeah, okay. Swimsuit edition Katerina. But for now, we must share the screens. Oh, and it sucks that that Firefox does not allow for Google Hangouts anymore. You got to use Chrome or some other browser, but Firefox, it's just like, nope. For whatever weird reason. Everybody can see this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Although I should probably enlarge the font a bit here because, you know, for people who watch this in the future that might not have like the best eyesight ever. Okay. The world getting better or worse? It might seem a strange thing to say, but all this chaos is a good thing. People are really starting to wake up now. I'm quite sure that people are waking up. One big thing that prevents people from seeing this, you know, seeing that the amount of people that are waking up are actually waking up, is that seeing it also requires facing something extremely uncomfortable that even most of the awakened are still as of yet too triggered to face it. The extremely uncomfortable thing being the fact that because the programming and indoctrination is so thick, that we all have the minds of the so-called elites, or whatever anyone wants to call them. To even consider this just for a second leads to the facing of one's low self-esteem. We've all been programmed with it. Low self-esteem does not just come in the form of Trigglypuff SJWs. That is the extreme, of course, but the majority of humans are not quite that extreme. But because the elites in their transhumanism, or whatever you want to call it, pick your buzzword, doesn't matter, craves to be emotionless robots, we too have been taught to fear our emotions. So much fear that most people deem anything that seems too positive as being airy-fairy or being a pussy. But that is the same arrogance as the elites. We're all infected with it. All divide and conquer techniques are based on it. The more you can get people to shun their humanity, the easier it is to program them. Most truthers seem to have this attitude that being awake is somehow equivalent to 15 years of the best therapy on the planet, super compressed and injected in the form of 1 second timing, like Neo in the Matrix being all like, whoa, I know Kung Fu. And Morpheus is like, show me. But seeing as this magic brain disk does not exist in real life, truthers say, okay, I'll show you my Kung Fu. And unlike Neo, they fail epic as they attack each other and become paranoid of each other, thus creating further division. We've also been taught to view time as the enemy, which is why for both the awakened and the so-called elites alike, they both share in common the fact that far and few of each group are actually able to holistically see more and more of the bigger picture. Most truthers and elites act like seagulls. Try tossing a flock of seagulls a French fry and watch what happens. It is exactly like that. They all fight over a French fry of truth, as it were. But there is zero cooperation that happens between seagulls or between truthers. and zero expansion into how all of the French fries connect and lead to the truth of the potatoes. The positive results from the triggering effects that have been happening as things ramp up is something I've been calling the wave of compassion, and there's nothing cute or cuddly about it. When compassion hits bullshit, it is like a fierce fight between an optimist and a pessimist. But imagine this fight in each human mind, the human with themselves. And the more they refuse to face their insecurities and clear their emotional and mental baggage, the more batshit and destructive they become. This is why people accidentally this is why people accidentally and or intentionally killing themselves, as well as the elites killing each other, has skyrocketed. The ironic cosmic joke for the transhumanists, again, or whatever buzzword you would like to use to refer to them as, is that regardless of the esoteric implications of what energies may or may not be doing and so on, it is technology more than anything, the information age itself, the very technological mind prison of their creation, that has also been acting as our liberator. The levels of information overload, regardless of whether or not the information was pure subjective crap or completely objective science and facts, or both, usually both, it has created such a boost in computer bandwidth, mental bandwidth, and emotional bandwidth that we are now able to process so much information that in the past, it would have taken one person thousands of years to accumulate what we tend to absorb within the span of a year these days. Lots more brain use in a technological society than, say, medieval England. Now toss in streaming media, social media, and physical reality world events, and welcome to 15 being the new 50. Midlife crisis come early. Everyone in the world, regardless of age, is now experiencing the equivalent of a midlife crisis. This is not a bad thing when we truly understand what a midlife crisis actually is. Most people do not understand what it is or why it happens. People assume it is a fear of getting older, but that's a total misunderstanding. There are biological and neurological processes at work here that are equally psychological and emotional, but having nothing to exclusively do with any one particular fear. More like all fears at once, coming at you like a Mack truck, creating massive cognitive dissonance. Here's why. There is only so long a human can suppress, repress, shun, and ignore their humanity and the rituals of self-loathing and self-hate that society and the educational, Orwellian for indoctrinational, system programmed into all of us. The more we practice something, the better we get at it. So we really get good at ignoring the proverbial roaches in the walls. But one day they inevitably breed to the point where they are covering every surface and can no longer be ignored. Humans can only cause themselves so much suffering before their very bodies and minds retaliate against them and force them to face the problems that they have been ignoring. That is the awakening process. And just like when a human literally wakes up from a literal sleep, they do not jump out of bed in 5 seconds yelling, "I'm awake!" So true also for the awakening process. We can't just snap out of decades worth of programming in 2 seconds, and the more we avoid facing ourselves, the more shit is going to get cray-cray, and not just for the so-called sheep, or the so-called awakened, or the so-called elites, but for every single human being. Our world is turning into one of transparency and honesty, which is going to look ugly. People act as if the world is ending, as if confronting ugly truths is supposed to look like candy and rainbows, otherwise it must mean we're doomed. Now, being willing to face the truth is victory. Even most truthers are not willing to face truth, but merely their own societal disgust and their desire to take it out on people. The awakening process, the awakening is a process that comforts the disturbed and disturbs the comfortable. It's ugly. It's painful. It's like being born again. The screaming, the blood, the doctor slapping the baby on its ass. The baby takes its first breath. It's fucking traumatic when things go very, very right. To a person born into a prison, a jailbreak feels like Armageddon. World peace doesn't mean everyone likes each other, likes the same things, thinks the exact same thoughts, etc. That's the totalitarian state idea of world peace. Actual peace simply means no conflict. You hate someone, but because you're a mature, balanced human being, your first reaction to them is not to create drama and bullshit. You don't like the same things, but because you're a mature and balanced human being, your first reaction to them is not to create drama and bullshit. You both have disagreements and differences in perspectives, but because you're a mature, balanced human being, your first reaction to them is what? To not create drama and bullshit. You don't necessarily have best buddy compatible personality types, but because you're a mature and balanced human being, guess what? Oh, I think you know, your first reaction to them is not to create drama and bullshit. Instead, your first reaction is to respect both your rights and theirs equally to your differences, to not get offended when someone doesn't enjoy dealing with you, and to not act like an irate asshole when you don't enjoy dealing with someone else, to be willing to communicate clearly and to not misunderstand a reciprocation of that clear communication as any form of attack on you or intended insult. Oh, I think me and Katerina have gone round and round on that one until we finally banged it out. That is what peace looks like. A world run by grown-up minds and grown-up bodies instead of toddler minds and grown-up bodies. Connie. Oh, sorry, I had a cough there. So, as Cryon is so fond of saying these days, no more fence sitting, it's time to pick a side. So what sides are there to pick from? Well, it's not country versus country, or political group versus political group, or spiritual narcissist versus spiritual narcissist. That's not the choice at hand. The choice at hand is rather cliche. Call it the choice between fear and love, dark and light, good and evil, rational thinking versus psychopathic behavior, destruction versus creation, Stockholm syndrome versus mental health, sickness versus wellness, empowerment versus disempowerment. There are two wolves in your mind. The one that wins is the one you feed. If you choose the light, then yes, no shunning of the dark. Instead, be willing to understand it. Otherwise, it'll fuck you in the ass. But with a willingness to be understanding, curious, and expand your mind and use your creativity and imagination, which builds efficiency and confidence, also comes the added bonus of it becomes a royal bitch for others to trick you, con you, or otherwise use you and take advantage of you. Life, though challenging, begins to no longer feel like a minefield. It's okay for things to take time. It's okay to learn at your own pace. The baby does not go into self-loathing every time it falls when it's learning to walk. It just keeps practicing until it gets it right. So too is this true with the human awakening process for us all. And Slow Dog 294 made a rather lengthy reply to this, although I don't think anyone here right now is going to feel like verbally reading all of that because we've got too much to discuss. So as I'm saying this, I'm just letting the text of it be on the screen here so that anybody watching it after the live stream, if they want to go ahead and hit the pause button and read it, or if they want to look in the description where they can go to the DeviantArt link that will be there once I fill out all the social media information and all of that. And I'll also modify this entry to include the video and all that stuff too. People will be able to read it themselves if they want to. Now, speaking of reading and giving me a chance to rest my voice, and because Richard is also a very good narrator. Richard, are you still here? Okay, that's interesting. Richard? Did Richard crash out and this video is frozen, or did he step away?
It looks like it's frozen. I see his head, and it looks like he was moving. I see his little beard.
I can't hardly... Oh, there he is. He's not frozen.
Yeah, all right.
Did you have to go to the bathroom or something, Rich?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, I read all of that, and Richard, what I'd like you to do now, since you're a good narrator too, is pull up that Hawaii article on your screen and go into screen share mode and read it out loud for the rest of the class.
Okay. Facebook. Let's see.
Please hold while Facebook is loading. In the meantime, we now bring you to the Sexy Dance by Katerina Roy.
I'm going to switch tabs there.
That needs to be done in context, Dave.
How am I doing looking at Facebook?
Okay, so far Richard's screen is blanked out. We see neither him nor a screen share. Interesting technical
This
difficulties.
camera's a lot more sensitive to light.
Ah,
Camera that I can actually adjust. Okay.
any ETAs on the loading of that?
Yeah, hold on.
This is where I should be a troll and start playing the Jeopardy theme. Do 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 do.
You guys see it now?
Praise Keck. I don't see anything yet. Have you enabled screen share? It's just the nature of 21st century multimedia these days. Just gotta just roll with the technical glitchy stuff and just have patience. Oh, you gotta be speaking while you do it, Katerina. Otherwise, Google doesn't show your screen.
I'm not trying to speak. I was just trying to be saucy.
Yeah, but, well, the thing is
you,
that literally,
guys.
I was going to say they can't. They're not going to really be able to see really well on that tiny screen. If you want to make a full appearance, you have to be speaking.
You're like, I'm too sexy for my shirt. I'm too sexy, it hurts.
Well, apparently, because what shirt?
Funny.
Well, it's technically sharing, but it's doing anything.
It's not showing a video screen.
Let's try this again.
Well, I see you.
Share screen. Is it doing it now?
Yes, now it is.
Okay.
I'm going to mute so that the screen doesn't switch by accident.
Hawaii just became the first U.S. state to pass a bill supporting basic income. Domgalian Futurism. This is on Business Insider. Innovation and forward thinking may be Hawaii's two biggest exports in 2017. Earlier this month, the state earned the distinction of being the first U.S. state to formally accept the provisions of the Paris Climate Agreement after President Donald Trump decided to withdraw the nation from it. And now, Hawaii is taking the lead in embracing yet another innovative idea, Universal Basic Income, or UBI. On June 15th, Hawaii's State Representative Chris Lee wrote a Reddit post about House Concurrent Resolution 89 he introduced in order to start a conversation about our future. After much work and with the help of a few key colleagues, it passed both houses of the state legislature unanimously. Lee also mentioned the development via Twitter. Chris Lee at Chris Lee 4HI Hawaii declare everyone deserves basic financial security begins eval of universal basic income #UBI and then shows the capital.hawaii.gov measure bill. Two major provisions. First, it declares that all families in Hawaii are entitled to basic financial security. As far as I'm told, it's the first time any state has made such a pronouncement, wrote Lee. The second provision establishes a number of government offices to analyze our state's economy and find ways to ensure all families have basic financial security, including an evaluation of different forms of a full or partial universal basic income. The congressman thanked Redditors in his post as he said the site became the first resource in considering UBI and added a Reddit standard TL:DR at the end. The state of Hawaii is going to begin evaluating universal basic income. A step forward. Under a UBI program, every citizen is granted a fixed income that's not dependent on their status in life. Despite the current focus on the concept, it actually isn't particularly new. In fact, former U.S. President Richard Nixon actually floated the idea back in 1969. However, the benefits of such a program have become more appealing in the light of recent technological advances, specifically the adoption of automated systems that could result in widespread unemployment. Proponents of UBI have highlighted how it would have an improvement on existing social welfare programs while mitigating the effects of joblessness expected to follow automation. Critics think that UBI would encourage a more lax attitude about work and argue that funding such a system would be difficult, if not impossible. Existing pilot programs, however, seem to indicate otherwise. And
Watch the little video.
over there, I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it or not. You guys will be able to see the text, hopefully.
Yeah, we can't hear, but we can see. But you have to be speaking in order to see it. Most of what you've shown so far, it probably has not gotten onto the view of everybody else watching.
Okay, let's try something different here. Okay, come on, computer.
I can always link to the article in the DeviantArt description, and people can watch it themselves. We also don't really know whether or not the audio in that, if you were even able to get it to work, has any copyrighted music tracks or anything.
Let's hold this one more time. Fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better. Income is rapidly taking root around the world. Finland launched a pilot program to test the concept. For 2 years, the Finns will receive €560 per month. They'll get to keep the money whether they decide to work or not. Canada plans to launch their own pilot program in Ontario. Residents in 3 cities will receive roughly $1,495 per month, the next payment of the province's existing welfare program. San Francisco-based Y put their hat into the ring too, offering minimum wage-based UBI to 100 families in Oakland. Studies suggest that 7% of the world's jobs could be automated by 2025. As I think, YouTube. I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income to have much of a choice. And then that's the video. Hang on. Hawaii may be the first U.S. state to pass any sort of UBI positive legislation, but several countries around the globe are already testing the system. Finland began its 2-year UBI 16, and Germany has one as well. Canada plans to start trials on Prince Edward Island, PEI, and Ontario, while India is currently debating the merits of UBI. Several private UBI endeavors are also in the works, including one that uses blockchain and cryptocurrency. Of course, the implementation of any major UBI program requires a great deal of political will, as Lee wrote. Politically sexy and won't win anyone an election. But if we do it properly, we will all be much better off for it in the long run. And then,
Alrighty. Well, I first want to say that, seeing as I don't believe that giving piles of money to greedy, corrupt politicians is going to save the earth, I disagree with the climate accords thing. But as far as the UBI thing, I definitely like us all to talk about the difference between that and the trap of the welfare state, because a lot of people don't know the difference. And Katerina has a lot of good insights as to how this sort of the system can help people that actually do want to work and they want to do something better than be a bagger at Walmart. And they have the skill and they're entrepreneurial and they can succeed if only the state didn't keep beating them down, beating them down, beating them down, beating them down, beating them down. Because what we normally refer to as a welfare system or public aid, in the context that they're used, these are basically Orwellian terms, kind of like the Patriot Act or safe space, or like triggered space.
Yeah.
So anyway, with the current welfare / public aid systems, basically the scenario is like this. Someone gets on hard times and it's like, oh shit, we have to pay on this planet, otherwise we die, so don't want to die, so I'll just get on the system to tide myself over until, I can get myself situated with work again, and then I'll get off the system. But the problem is that when you're on the system, you cannot make more than X amount per year. Otherwise, they're like, oh, we're going to totally shut you down and you and your family can starve, and fuck you. You got to stay on the system.
Well, what happens with that, Dave, actually, is that the food stamp things, like, for instance, a lot of people do food stamps and stuff like that. The percentage that they cover goes down. So as your income raises or whatever, what they fund is less. And so in a way that there is like food assistance that people have gotten off of, and they've transitioned to just being able to provide for themselves, and in that way, like, it's a good thing.
It differs from state to state, though. The policies are a little different. But in Illinois, for example, it's more of a trap in Illinois. I could go into the details of that, but I won't right now.
Right. Well, I know here in Hawaii, there's people who have transitioned off of it and they can do that. But then the thing is that there's, a lot of people that don't, and they just kind of stay in it in perpetuity. And I think that the disability thing is a bit more of a trap for people, because as people are, suffering from disability, I've seen this in some of my friends, and they are trying to like get healthier, get better, recover from stuff that was causing them to be disabled. then they're afraid that they're not going to be able to recover fast enough to be able to actually support themselves financially, or like that they're not able to sustain that because, you know, they've been disabled. And the idea of them like not being able to make a certain amount of money because they'll lose their disability kind of caps what they're able to aspire to, or what they're able to do with themselves, and how creatively they're able to think about being able to generate income. And so I think that this whole like universal basic income thing is actually like a really smart idea, because then it can help people to have that foundational level of, you know, I have this much amount of money, I'm not going to starve. Like, you can at least provide the basics for yourself and your family as you are recovering or whatever, and being able to just
Totally.
have what you need while you're able to take your time and to build things up organically, you know.
Not to mention, another issue seems to be that there's this false stigma that that the general belief is that, oh well, people aren't going to work unless you literally threaten their life. That they're going to be lazy unless you literally threaten to kill them. Because obviously in our current society, if you don't make money, you can't survive. Generally. Right. Unless you're like out in the middle of the woods somewhere and you're really good at like camping indefinitely. But other than that, you know, it's like, this is the world we live in. And what people don't realize is that laziness is fear paralysis. Like, I don't really think anybody at any age has ever woken up in the morning and gone, you know, I know what I want to do with my life. Absolutely nothing. I just want to sit there and vegetate like an idiot forever. Nah, people don't usually come to those ideas of their own volition. What ends up happening is a lot of people, and this is understandably because we do live in a totalitarian world, regardless of who wants to admit that this is the case or not. It is run by psychopaths. That's the reality. In this totalitarian world, when people understandably see that a tyrannical society does not give a fuck about them, it is an understandable reaction to think, you know, why do I want to contribute to a society that doesn't care about me, that wants me to just suffer as a slave for all my life to the benefit of corporate CEOs? Why do I want to contribute to that nonsense? So the fact that tyranny leaves a bad taste in even stupid people's mouths, except of course for the SJWs and things like that, but I'm not including the minority of the ultra extreme. There's always going to be some ultra extreme people that really actually don't want to work. They really actually just want to sit there in their safe space and bitch about how everyone who doesn't agree with them is sexist and racist and whatever. So, you know, there's people that definitely do abuse the system, but you know, they're a minority. If we have a UBI system and people aren't terrified that, oh my God, if I don't work as a slave for my corporate enemies who bend me over and ass rape me 7 times a day, then I'm going to die. So when you remove that from the equation and you make it so that people's basic needs are taken care of, I think that's a good idea. And I think that this UBI idea should also include other things like free training courses for growing your own food. Hey, want some LED grow lights, some big ass plant pots, some soil, want some heirloom seeds, whatever? No problem. Free from UBI. Grow your own food. Do your thing. We'll train you how to do it. We'll give you some skills. We'll actually help you. Whereas public assistance these days, for the most part, is more enslavement than help. You know, most of these systems don't do anything, don't give anybody anything that can really help them to help themselves. They just say, okay, sit there and rot while we throw you a bone. And that's not public assistance. That's just bullshit.
It's hindering. I mean, you called it right when you said, like, it's a nanny state kind of thing. And I just seen that with so many people who just like get on food stamps or something, or public assistance, and you're right. It is like they rot, like their ambition just goes away, but you don't see the insidiousness of it, like that it's just kind of built in. And unless somebody has like a tremendous amount of their own tenacity or desire to succeed or whatever, it's really a racket for people to get kind of trapped into that system. And it doesn't really help society to move forward or to grow. It really just kind of stagnates society and creates a bunch of governmental babysitting.
There is one group of people who does actually benefit from it, and that's all the CEOs of the corporations and all them people that run the Walmarts and the Jewel Oscos and all the grocery stores that accept the public aid cards and stuff like that. Those are the types of people that are definitely interested in maintaining a nanny state, because you can't really blame them though, because that's guaranteed money. I mean, if you've got all these people on the food stamps and whatever, that's guaranteed customers. And if they accept that food stamps at their location and the government's going to pay the bill, that's guaranteed money. So these big grocery stores, they love it. It's guaranteed fucking money from the government just from people coming in and shopping. So they love the nanny state. Another stigma is when people start to realize the difference between an actual public aid system in the non-Orwellian context and the nanny state system. When people start to realize it and start speaking about it, if they're not really super careful and clear about the words they use to define what they're saying, then other people are going to automatically think, oh, well, they hate poor people. They hate the disabled. They hate minorities. They want them all to starve and die because they are against a public aid system. So they must be miserable, sick people that just want,
No, the public aid
half the
system
country
needs to be reformed.
Yeah, exactly. Or a reformation is needed, not an elimination. But unless you speak crystal specifically clear about it, then there's a lot of people who are just going to automatically jump like, that person hates the poor, hates minorities, hates the disabled, hates etc. So yeah, that's like one of those other stigmas when you try to reveal the truth of a system to people. It goes with any of the delusions that we've all been made to suffer under. At first, when you try to call bullshit on the delusion, the people take it as if you are attacking the victims of that delusion, instead of what you're actually doing is attacking the delusion itself.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on this, Richard?
Well, yeah. I mean, I can go into my customer service experience at the truck stop. I mean, I understand fundamentally what food stamps and public assistance is for, and I can respect when a lot of people who are making minimum wage, which isn't survivable in this day and age, because the feds, the corporates, the globalists, the cabal, whatever you want to call them, has jacked up our inflation rate compared to what standard of living should be, way out of proportion. I don't even think those have been balanced since the 60s.
By the way, as long as you're on that tangent, I'll also let you explain why raising minimum wage does the opposite of its intention.
Okay. Well, yeah, and the only thing I can say about food stamps is I understand what they're for in basic, and what the purpose of them originally was for, and it's a noble and honest sort of thing. But I mean, yeah, you've got your stereotypical textbook case type people who abuse the system and use it. It's just like with anything else. There's always those sort of people who like to use and abuse and take advantage. Um, but there's a really bad stigma, that seems to be like everybody thinks, oh well, welfare means you're scum, you're less than human. It's like, no, you're trying to fucking survive, and you're doing what you can to survive in a lot of cases. And I know from experience, because there's a lot of people, even I know, that are hardworking people that aren't, system. They're not doing it just because they're parasites or leeches or anything. They're taxpayers. They pay taxes when and where they can, with whatever minimum wage job they're working or full-time job or whatever, but they're not making quite enough to make the bills happen. And, if you can get a free $300 or $400 every month to put food on the table, well, I don't blame you. You got to get food. Your kids need food. You need food. You got to eat. So it's really one of those things where it's like people don't really think all the way through on it. And a lot of jobs now, a lot of the menial jobs that used to be providers of living wages nowadays really don't provide a living wage. I mean, between housing costs now that are skyrocketing and going into the out of control inflation rate, it's all by design. I mean, the whole structure is designed to rot. They've taken metaphor. I'll go into a metaphor. The United States used to be on a foundation financially that was made out of solid steel reinforced concrete that was impenetrable. Well, they blew that all away, and now the United States is standing on a financial pillar of some of the cheapest termite-infested wood you can find, and that's what they consider a good, stable foundation for the United States of America, i.e. the Federal Reserve. They're the termites in the wood. Out of the financial foundation of this country away. And
you know what this reminds me of? And because of all the things you're saying, this day and age, even people working what one might consider a halfway decent job, like maybe at least a little over minimum wage at minimum, like, even with people like that, this day and age, and especially if you live in the city where the prices of everything is jacked up so high, like I do, I live in Chicago, you basically almost can't survive without roommates. Like, even if you are a family of husband, wife, and a kid or two, you're still going to need a roommate or two in order for everybody to make ends meet. Like, here in my particular living situation, I mean, my friends and people who know me know what it is. I haven't really gone into a lot of detail on it, like, public here, but I'll go into a little bit. Basically, this is my basic situation. I obviously make money from, my fish and pond stuff and videos, this, that, and the other. I used to be making more money a couple of years ago, but then I won my my IMB on PSEC, my Illuminati Merit Badge, and my income took a plummet, and now it's slowly going back up. But anyway, so I've got that. My dad and I live in this house, and this is a huge multi-story house, very spacious. For anybody who has seen any of the videos of different shots of different rooms around here and the outside and different parts, can clearly see that I live in a pretty huge house. I'm very lucky. And so I live on the second floor. Got my dad on the first floor. He owns the house. Then there's Katie and all that, etc. But in addition to family living here and pitching in and so on and so forth, we also have a roommate to help out with things. Guy by the name of Stan, very nice guy. He's divorced, has a daughter a little younger than Katie. Katie and Julia are like best buddies. You can see more of them on the Pondscape channel, youtube.com/Pondscape. I'm sure eventually you'll see Julia on PSEC within something or another, eventually, because we see Katie on PSEC. It's only a matter of time before Julia probably gets on here too. But so Julia is Stan's daughter, and he lives in one of the bedrooms here, and he's not home most of the time anyway because he works a lot. But his daughter visits with him here, and yeah, I mean, you need roommates in order to just come to even a comfortable level. to be able to do what needs doing, and to be able to expand out, and especially if you live in a city. Now, if you live out in the country, in the place where like somewhere out in the Midwest where land might be a lot cheaper, an individual can get themselves a decent property and a decent house for super cheap. But the trade-off is that if you if you don't if you don't drive, or if like the nearest grocery store is like way the fuck far away, because you're in a house in the middle of nowhere, and the nearest grocery store is in the small town that's all the way over here. It's like the lack of convenience is the trade-off, but everything being cheaper is the benefit. So it really does kind of depend on where you live.
Or you even have natural disasters. And I do want to cut it short here because I need to get to bed because I want to get up tomorrow so I can drive to the coast and start the ocean for the day.
Oh, cool. Well, it's a shame that you'll be then missing when me and Katerina go into the conversation about all of her wonderful, lovely accomplishments, including the swimsuit edition, Katerina. But I guess you'll catch it on the rerun.
I feel like that needs to be its own PSEC episode, though.
You think so?
Yeah.
Because this
It's
is
a
kind
lot.
of a more, yeah. I mean, kind of what we're talking about right now is kind of more of a social issue. Not that Katerina's issue isn't important in social; it's very important in social. It's just under a different context, different.
I think it ties into the context of world getting better or worse. She's an example of how the world can get better.
I know, but I'm saying like in depth.
We could do like a part 2X. I mean, we could do a part 2. No big deal.
Alrighty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I get back tomorrow, I'm just going to be doing a day trip tomorrow. So when I get back in the evening, we can actually go and do an in-depth, in detail conversation and all.
We could do that if Katerina's game.
I have a friend I'm supposed to be hanging out with tomorrow, and we've got church to go to and stuff. So
yeah, but that's okay because we could I mean, we got different time zones here, so whenever you're concluded with that,
right,
it might still be day for you, but it'll be evening for me and Rich.
Gotcha.
I'm just saying, like tomorrow evening, like about the same time.
Yeah, so like after you're done with whatever, kind of like you're done with all the things you were doing today, and here we are. So same idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so Richard, continue with what you were saying.
I was just going to say, a lot of in the South and in the Midwest, things tend to be cheaper because, the climate is a lot more erratic. Weather is a lot more unpredictable. You have hurricanes, you have tornadoes, you have
floods.
Yeah. You're dealing with all kinds of different wildlife, poison sumac, various different types of snakes, insects. The South and the Midwest, I mean, you want to talk about an environment that could kill you far more quickly than a lot of other places if you're exposed.
Not so much here, I'm thankful, but yeah, generally you're right.
Northern states, yeah, we're kind of blessed in that regard. We don't have to worry about that as much. The islands out in the Pacific are fairly blessed in that regard too. They don't have to deal with as much of that toxic kind of more biologically diverse biological warfare part of nature.
Winter helps to
southern
keep that
states
down.
It's not as down there. And not only that, you've got the heat, you've got the humidity, like in Florida, it'd be like 98 degrees in the middle of the night at 11 o'clock. You come flying.
And in places like Tennessee and Florida, the mosquitoes are the size of
sparrows. The mosquitoes are everywhere, and you've
the size of sparrows.
And you've got these strange colored black wasps with blue eyes and all of that stuff. Yeah, it's real fun. But anyway, moving on beyond that. Yeah, that is a good valid point. And I mean, that's the case in a lot of big cities around the country. You have these ridiculous, astronomically artificially raised real estate prices and everything else, But of course, yet again, it goes into supply and demand. Chicago, in general, is a huge, huge city. And there's great demand for land, especially in the Chicagoland area and in the parts of downtown Chicago as well. There's great financial incentive to build on a lakefront.
Actually, ironically, a lot of people have been moving out of Chicago, including businesses, because of high property taxes. There's a lot of land in Chicago now that the buildings have literally been bulldozed down, and it's now just fields of wildflowers and weeds and stuff, because property taxes are lower if you have nothing on the land.
Well, yeah, now we're on kind of the other side, and a lot of those buildings, I would have imagined, were built, at the nearest 30 years ago, back when the economy was booming, or at the earliest back at the end of World War II, when America was in an industrial boom. And
it's mainly the property taxes that have chased a lot of people out of the city.
No. Hold on, I get that. What I'm saying is we're on the other side of the bubble, is what I'm saying. Yeah, people are leaving now because they jacked up all the prices because of the before mentioned, that industrial boom, went clear up here. Now we're down here again. They raised all of the taxes and raised everything sky high because you know how governments are. They love to tax and they love to make their money. They love bathing in their money, rubbing it between their armpits and their groin, wherever. That's kind of government's big role. They're the big incestuous
Scrooge
black
McDuck.
parasite that likes to suck all the lifeblood out of the citizenry. But
Scrooge McDuck swimming through the vault of money.
Yeah, swimming through the pool of gold coins. Yeah, there you go, spitting gold coins out of his mouth. But yeah, Chicago's on the other side of that at this point, and it is what it is. I mean, not much. It's on the other side of that now, but Chicago hasn't caught on to the reality of it yet, and more people are going to keep moving because the economy sucks because it's been artificially tanked and destroyed. The economy isn't stable like it was, or relatively stable like it was in the 40s. Our currency isn't backed by anything. It's all IOUs, artificial inflation. They set the rates. They make everything up out of thin air. Nothing is balanced anymore. The system is just totally in a state of flux and decay. And
in a way, it's providing a positive benefit, because I know that one of the plans of organized crime, the elites, whatever you want to call them, is to try to fuck with people in the country enough to get everybody to move to the cities. In other words, a herding or a corralling of people, and using the economy and false flags and all sorts of things to do it. Because once everybody is contained in cities, it's easier to lock everybody down, and then you have no potential resistance out here. You know what I mean? But that's backfired, because as the people who run the cities keep getting greedier and greedier and greedier and wanting more and more and more, the economy of the city starts to tank, which actually forces people to move where? Out into the country, exactly where they're trying to get people out of. So it's actually kind of tossing a monkey wrench in their plans, which I'm kind of happy to see.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'd love to stick around and talk about it more, but I want to get some sleep. I plan on getting up at 6 a.m. It's already 11, so.
Yeah, and I need to go to the bathroom and stuff and go get my smoothie stuff ready for Paul when he gets home.
All right. Well, Katerina, you and I can still stay on and talk. I'll just hit the stop broadcast button, and so then the conversation will go to private mode.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll continue where we left off tomorrow, part 2X with Katerina and the whole 9 yards, and continuing where I left off with the whole conversation, going into thorough in-depth detail and backwards analysis and all that stuff. But
yep, and I'm sure Katerina will have something just as sexy on as she has right now.
Be looking forward to it.
You guys are funny.
Anyway, love you both, and I'll talk to you guys later.
No
Bye.
problem. Catch you later. And as far as everybody else out there watching the live stream, there will be a part 2 of this where we're planning on tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. So until next time, peace out.
Bye.